I never imagined my life would veer so dramatically off course. On what I assumed was just another Sunday, I found myself in church, settled into my favorite pew at the very heart of the sanctuary, where the choir's harmonies felt as if heaven itself were caressing the earth. That morning's sermon was on tithing, a topic I had heard time and again. "Give your 10% to God," the pastor boomed, echoing Malachi 3:10. His words stirred the familiar mix of guilt and obligation in my chest, as they always did. I'd been steadfast with my tithe, even when it strained my finances. I believed I was securing my blessings correctly. I had always considered myself a good person, attending church regularly, lending a hand in the community, and doing my utmost to treat others kindly. Yet deep down, if I'm honest, my relationship with God felt transactional, a mere checklist of duties. Among all my obligations, tithing was the one I took greatest pride in. I gave my 10% faithfully, convinced it was my sure ticket to heaven. Then came the day that shattered everything I thought I knew about life, death, and God. It was an ordinary afternoon. I was driving home after running errands when the accident occurred. A truck ran a red light and struck my car with terrifying force. I barely registered the screech of tires and the shattering glass before everything went dark. When I next opened my eyes, I wasn't in my car at all. I was standing in an endless expanse of light. The warm glow enveloped me like a tender embrace. Yet I felt utterly exposed, as if every hidden secret of my soul were laid bare. And then I saw him. Jesus. His presence was overwhelming. He radiated a love and authority that words can scarcely capture. There was no need for introductions. I knew immediately who he was. My knees gave way, and I fell before him, trembling. I tried to speak, to explain myself, but my words caught in my throat. Jesus looked at me with eyes that penetrated every layer of my being. In that gaze, I felt both immense love and a deep sense of unworthiness. "Do you know why you're here?" he asked gently, his voice both melodic and commanding. In that moment, I was rendered speechless. I don't know what to say, I thought. "Let me show you," he said. In an instant, my entire life played out before me like a vivid movie. Every moment, every decision, every thought was exposed. I saw the times I had been kind and the countless moments when I had ignored someone in need because it was inconvenient. I saw the pride I took in my acts of service, not because they truly glorified God, but because they made me feel superior. Even my tithing, the one accomplishment I had so proudly boasted, was revealed as an empty ritual performed out of obligation rather than love or genuine faith. "You have misunderstood," Jesus said, his tone firm yet compassionate. "Tithing is not about money, it's about trust, it's about your heart." My heart broke as his words sank in. Tears streamed down my face as I realized how far I had strayed from truly knowing him. "You have been given much," Jesus continued, "but you have withheld yourself. Now I will show you what you have missed." Before I could ask him to clarify, the radiant light shifted, and I was swept into an experience that would forever alter my being. In an instant, I found myself in a realm of breathtaking beauty, where colors unknown to me danced gracefully across the sky. The air vibrated with a symphony of sounds, as if even the wind were lifted in song. I saw groups of people with faces aglow with joy and serenity, united in worship. There was no trace of pain or sorrow, only an overwhelming sense of belonging and pure love. I longed to remain there indefinitely, every part of me yearning to be immersed in that heavenly praise. Yet, as I stood transfixed, a gentle tug reminded me that I was not yet ready to stay. Jesus reappeared beside me, his expression soft and tender. "This is what I desire for all my children," he said, "but not everyone understands what it means to truly live for me." He explained, "Many cling to rituals and rules, yet their hearts remain distant from me." As he spoke, I caught fleeting images of people I recognized from earth. Some were steadfast and devoted, their lives defined by selfless love and humility. Others like me, had been preoccupied with outward appearances, neglecting the deeper call to surrender their hearts completely to God. It pained me to see myself reflected among that latter group, yet the truth was undeniable. His words echoed within me. "It's not about what you give, but about how you live. True worship," he continued, "is a life poured out in love and obedience." Before I could respond, the scene shifted again, plunging me into a darker, more somber reality. I found myself in a place of utter despair. The light and joy of heaven had vanished, replaced by a suffocating darkness. All around, cries and wails, laden with regret and anguish, filled the air, while shadowy figures writhed in endless torment in the distance. The atmosphere was heavy with the burdens of selfishness, pride, and unrepentance. "This is what it means to live apart from me," Jesus said, his voice thick with sorrow. "When you hold back your heart and live only for yourself, this is the bitter fruit you harvest." I longed to avert my eyes, desperate to escape the overwhelming sorrow of what I was witnessing. Yet Jesus held my gaze firmly. He was not showing me this to punish me, but to awaken me to the reality of my choices. "You cannot serve two masters," he declared. "You must choose." As he spoke, I felt the crushing weight of my own selfishness, my misplaced priorities, my pride, and my desperate need for control. These had barred me from fully surrendering to him. I had been blind to the true cost of my half-hearted faith. But then, amidst the darkness, hope broke through. "You have been given another chance," Jesus said, his voice piercing the gloom like a beam of light. In that moment, I was returned to the light. Standing before me with his hand extended, he offered a choice. "You can return to your life and live it for me, or continue as you are and miss out on the fullness of what I have prepared for you." The weight of his offer was almost unbearable. I knew I did not deserve another chance, yet his love was undeniable. Overwhelmed, I fell to my knees, tears streaming down my face, and whispered, "Lord, I choose you. I no longer wish to live for myself. Teach me how to live for you." Jesus smiled, his expression radiating joy and compassion. "Go and share what you have seen," he instructed. "Help others understand that I desire their hearts, not their rituals. Remind them that true worship is a life surrendered in love." With those words, the light around me grew even brighter, and I felt myself being gently drawn back to my body. I awoke in the hospital with my body aching yet miraculously alive. The doctors marveled at my survival, calling it a miracle, but I understood that the true wonder was the transformation that had taken root in my soul. From that moment on, my life was reshaped in ways I never could have imagined. At first, I grappled with how to begin, how to articulate the enormity of what I had seen and experienced. The weight of that encounter was almost too immense to express in words. Yet I knew that Jesus had commanded me to share this message, regardless of how challenging it might be. It has been years since that life-altering day when I died, and returned with a new understanding of tithing, of faith, and of life itself. At the time, the shift was so monumental that I couldn't fully grasp its scope. I couldn't comprehend the profound lessons that were unveiled to me. But now, as I look back, I realize just how deeply that moment changed me. Not only in my approach to giving, but in the very way I live, breathe, and interact with the world. The years following my encounter with Jesus were filled with both growth and pain, as well as a deepening understanding. In the beginning, I struggled to weave these revelations into my life without completely severing ties with everything I had known. I had always belonged to a church community where tithing was viewed as an obligatory, sacred duty, a marker of one's righteousness. Everyone around me still operated within that system. But now I understood the truth, and that truth wasn't solely about money, it was about the condition of the heart. I began to delve into the scriptures, seeking deeper insights from the Word. Jesus had shown me that tithing was never really about the money, never about the rigid 10% we were taught to give. It wasn't a formula to unlock blessings or secure favor. It was never meant to be a transactional relationship with God. What I was learning ran far deeper than I had ever imagined. In my quiet moments with God, I began to see the bigger picture of what Jesus was trying to communicate. Tithing is an expression, a symbol of something far more significant, my relationship with God. He wanted my heart. He craved my trust. Giving wasn't about what I possessed, but about what I was willing to surrender. I spent countless hours in prayer, asking for guidance, and as I did, the heavy structure I had built around tithing started to crumble. It had been so interwoven with my identity that I hadn't realized how much pressure I had placed on myself to meet that expectation. The pressure to give in the right way, the fear of not measuring up, the guilt of imperfection. Jesus revealed that he didn't need my perfect tithes. He wanted me to come to him just as I was, broken and imperfect, trusting that he would provide everything I needed. That realization was the turning point. When I released the notion that tithing was merely an obligation to be checked off a list, I found true freedom. I was free to give, not out of fear of consequences, but because I genuinely wanted to honor God with my life, not just with my money, but with my time, my energy, my thoughts, my words, and my actions. Giving became an act of trust and love, not a burdensome duty. The transformation was gradual, yet it reshaped every aspect of my existence. It started subtly at first, but soon I noticed it altering the way I related to my community, my church, and even my family. I began to give in a new, genuine way. Rather than merely setting aside a fixed percentage of my income because it was expected, my giving evolved into a true reflection of my heart. No longer was it about a set percentage. It became about reaching out to those who truly needed it. I offered support to causes that stirred my soul. I helped those in my community who were struggling, giving not out of obligation, but to mirror the love and compassion that God had lavished upon me. And as my heart changed, so did the world around me. I began to see things from a new perspective. I noticed how the concept of tithing had been twisted in many places, transformed into a matter of appearances and tradition, rather than genuine generosity. It became clear that many like me had been trapped in a cycle, giving without true understanding, performing rituals without meaning, trying to appease God through acts disconnected from an authentic relationship with Him. I vividly remember one Sunday, sitting in church, listening to a sermon on tithing. The pastor reiterated the importance of giving and promised blessings, a message I had heard countless times before. But this time something within me stirred. I longed to stand up and proclaim, "It's not about the money, it's about the heart. It's about love." Yet I held back, knowing that the congregation wasn't ready to hear the truth I had discovered. It was too much of a shock to their system. Instead, I sat quietly, reflecting on how far I had come, aware that I could no longer give as I had once been taught. I also understood that not everyone was ready to accept the truth I had encountered. It was a painful realization, feeling like an outsider in a place I had long called home. Yet I knew my journey was not meant to mirror everyone else's. God had revealed this truth to me for a reason, and that reason extended beyond my own life. It was meant for others too. As time went on, I began sharing my story with those I trusted. At first, there was skepticism. People resisted my words, and I couldn't blame them. I had once stood in their shoes. I had believed that tithing was simply a transaction, a way to earn God's favor, and I had lived my life accordingly. But now I saw the flaws in that mindset, and I could no longer keep silent. Slowly, one by one, people began to listen. At first, it was just a few close friends, but as I continued to share, I witnessed hearts being transformed. They came to understand that the truth wasn't about the amount of money given. It was about surrendering our hearts to God. It was about giving from a place of love, not fear. And as that understanding spread, their way of giving transformed too. It wasn't merely a financial change. It was a profound spiritual awakening. I watched as people began to give with genuine joy rather than reluctance. They found peace in their generosity, realizing they were offering not just money, but their hearts to God. For the first time, I truly understood what Jesus meant when He said, "The kingdom of God is in the heart." It was never about outward performance, but about the inward transformation that changes everything. I began addressing larger gatherings about what I had discovered. I recounted my encounter with Jesus and the profound revelations He had shared with me. Some people listened with open hearts while others dismissed my words, but I didn't mind. I knew I had to speak the truth, even if it wasn't popular or easy. One day I was invited to speak at a church event. The theme was generosity, and I recognized this as my opportunity to share my insights on tithing. I felt a surge of nerves, anxious about how my message would be received. Yet when I stepped up to speak, a peace beyond all understanding filled me. I talked about the heart of giving, explaining that tithing was never just a financial transaction, but a true reflection of our love for God and for one another. As I spoke, I could see moments of realization flicker in the eyes of my listeners. They began to understand that giving isn't about expecting something in return. It's about living a life of generosity that mirrors the love and grace of God. I explained how Jesus had shown me that tithing was an act of trust and surrender, not confined solely to money. It was about offering our time, our attention, and our love to others, to the world, and above all to God. When my message concluded, people approached me with gratitude and shared their newfound insights. I knew then that my words had made a real difference. More than that, I recognized it was just the beginning. The truth was spreading, one heart at a time. Looking back now, I see how far I've come. The journey hasn't been easy, and it's far from over. Yet I am no longer the person I once was. I no longer give because I feel I must. I give because I choose to, because my heart has been transformed by God's love. I understand now what Jesus meant when he spoke to me all those years ago. Tithing isn't what you think. It's so much more. It's about surrendering everything to God, not out of obligation, but out of love. When we give with our whole hearts, we reflect the love of Christ. And that, my friend, is the truest form of worship. The truth will set you free, and it has set me free.